My boyfriend ripped my dress off my body in a parking lot because a man said I looked nice. What his best friend did next shocked him. Cody started telling me what to wear 3 months into our relationship. At first it was small. He'd look at my outfit before we left and say something like, "That's what you're going with," not a question, more like a warning. If I wore anything fitted, he'd ask who I was trying to impress. If I wore a skirt above the knee, he'd tell me to change because he wasn't walking into a restaurant with me looking like that. I changed every time because I thought he was protective, and I confused that with love the way a lot of people do when they're 23 and think jealousy is a compliment. By month 6, he wasn't asking anymore. He was picking. He'd go through my closet and pull out what he wanted me to wear. Always something loose, always something long, always something that made me look like I was hiding. He threw out a red dress I'd bought for my birthday because he said it was disrespectful to him, not to anyone else, to him. He tossed it in the trash, and when I pulled it out, he took it to the dumpster behind our building. I bought a plain black top with thin straps once, and he cut the straps with scissors on the counter while I watched. Didn't say a word, just snipped them, dropped the top back, and walked to the living room like he'd done something reasonable. He didn't hit me, he didn't scream, he just controlled every inch of fabric that touched my body, and somehow that felt too specific to explain. The night it happened was Leo's engagement party. Leo was Cody's best friend since college, and his fiancée Margot had rented the back room of a Vietnamese restaurant downtown for about 50 people. I wore a navy blue dress. It wasn't short, it wasn't low cut, it was a normal fitted dress. Cody saw me walk out of the bedroom and told me to change. I said no. Something in me had started to crack, and I was tired of dressing like I owed him an apology for having a body. He didn't argue in the apartment, he just went quiet, which was worse. For the first hour at the party, everything was fine. I talked to Margot, ate spring rolls. Cody stood across the room watching me the way a security guard watches a shoplifter. Then Leo's coworker Dante came over and told me I looked nice. That's all he said. I looked nice. 2 seconds later, Cody was beside me. He put his hand on my arm and said we needed to talk outside. I went because I didn't want to make a scene. The second we got to the parking lot, he grabbed the side of my dress near the hip and pulled. The fabric ripped from the seam all the way up to my ribs. He did it with one hand, fast, like he'd been thinking about it all night. Then he looked at me and said, no girlfriend of his was going to walk around like that in front of his friends. I was standing in a parking lot with my dress torn open and he was looking at me like I'd earned it. I didn't cry. I walked back inside holding the fabric together and went straight to Margot. She pulled me into the bathroom, asked what happened, and when I told her she didn't gasp, she didn't ask if I was sure. She handed me her jacket and said, stay here. Margot went out and found Cody at the bar like nothing had happened. She walked up to him in front of Leo, in front of Leo's parents, in front of a table of 8 people, and told him he needed to leave her party. Cody said it was between him and me. Margot said it stopped being between him and me when I walked back in with a ripped dress and his handprints worth of damage on it. Leo stood up. He didn't say much. He just told Cody to go. Cody looked at Leo like he was waiting for him to take his side. Leo didn't. Cody left. The next day, Cody called me and said he'd lost his temper, and that it wouldn't happen again, and that I needed to understand he reacted that way because he cared about how people saw us. How people saw us. Not how I felt standing in a parking lot with a torn dress. How people saw us. I told him we were done. He said I was throwing away 2 years over a dress. I said he threw away 2 years when he ripped it. 2 weeks later, Margot called me. She said she and Leo wanted me at the wedding, not as Cody's date, as myself. You're coming as yourself, not as anyone's +1, she said, and something inside me broke open. For the first time in 2 years, someone told me I was enough without conditions, but Cody still thought he was Leo's best man. He had no idea the conversation had already happened without him. That night, I called Angelina. She was my best friend since we were 15, but for 2 years, I'd kept her at a distance because every time I tried to tell her about Cody, it sounded so small coming out of my mouth. He picks my clothes. He threw away my dress. He cut my straps. Each sentence by itself sounded like something you could explain away, and I was so used to Cody explaining things away that I'd started doing it for him before anyone even asked. That night, I didn't stop. I told her everything. The closet inspections, the red dress in the dumpster, the scissors on the counter, the parking lot, the sound the fabric made when it tore, the way he walked back into the party and ordered a drink like he hadn't just ripped my clothes off my body. I told her things I hadn't said out loud to myself yet, like how sometimes I'd stand in front of the mirror after he left for work and try on something I actually wanted to wear, just to see what it looked like, and then I'd take it off before he got home like I was hiding evidence. Angelina didn't interrupt. When I was done, she said, you're going to that wedding, and I'm helping you pick the dress. That weekend, she took me to a dress shop. My hands went straight to a loose black dress with long sleeves, something shapeless and dark and safe. She took it out of my hands. That's not you, she said. That's him. She walked me over and started pulling things, colors, shapes, fabrics that didn't apologize. She handed me an emerald green dress, fitted, neckline pretty without being much. I tried it on. It fit like it was made for me. It showed my shoulders and my waist and my shape, and I looked good. I actually looked really good. And my first thought was, Cody would never let me wear this. I almost took it off right then, but I opened the fitting room door instead, and Angelina was standing right there. She looked at me for a long second and said, you look like someone who's done apologizing. I bought it. I carried it out of the store in a bag, and it felt like I was carrying proof that I still existed somewhere under all the rules he'd built around me. That same week, Cody started texting me, not angry, casual. The first one said, Leo hasn't sent me the groomsman schedule yet. You talked to Margot lately? He still thought he was in the wedding. I didn't respond. A few hours later, I'm thinking we should talk before the wedding. Clear the air. Clear the air. Like what he did was fog and not a man ripping fabric off a woman's body. I called Margot. I asked her if me being there was going to cause problems. Margot said, you being there isn't the problem. Him thinking he owns every room you walk into is the problem. Then the reversal happened. I was eating takeout with Angelina when Margot texted. Leo told him. He didn't take it well. Within the hour, my phone lit up with a message from Cody. Long, controlled, the kind of message that sounds reasonable if you don't know the person behind it. He said Leo was making a huge mistake. He said I had poisoned the people closest to him. He said Margot had never liked him and was using the situation to cut him out. And then at the very end, I hope you're happy with what you've done to my life. Every sentence was about him, his friends, his reputation, his life. Not once did he mention the dress. Not once did he say he was sorry. I put the phone phone face down. Angelina said, "You answering?" I said, "No." 3 days before the rehearsal dinner, Margot called. Her voice was careful. She told me Cody had been making calls, not to me, to everyone around Leo. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't making threats. He was being calm, reasonable, telling people the dress ripped on accident when he grabbed my arm, that he'd been trying to talk to me and I pulled away, and the fabric caught. He told them Margot and Leo were being manipulated by a bitter ex-girlfriend. "A few people have started asking questions," Margot said. "Not a lot, but enough." That was the thing about Cody. He didn't need everyone to believe him. He just needed enough people to doubt me. That evening, I drove to Leo's apartment. He let me in, and we sat in his living room, and he told me about the phone calls. 3 of them. The first was guilt. Cody talked about college and the road trip after graduation, and kept saying things like, "You really want to throw all that away." The second was bargaining. Cody offered to come as a guest, sit in the back, not even be best man. Leo told him no. The third was harder. Cody told him, "If I'm not at that wedding, people are going to know you chose some girl over your best friend since college." Some girl. That's what I was in Cody's version. Leo said he sat with that for about 5 seconds. Then he told Cody, "I chose the person who didn't rip someone's clothes off in my parking lot." Then Leo told me something I didn't know. After the engagement party, after Cody left, Leo went back outside. He stood near the spot where we'd been and looked at the ground. He found a strip of my navy dress, maybe 4 inches long, torn along the seam, just lying there on the asphalt. He picked it up. He kept it. I said, "Why?" Leo looked at me and said, "Because my best friend tried to tell me it didn't happen, and I needed to remember that it did." That was the whole thing. Cody's entire strategy was to make people forget what they saw, to talk so smoothly and so reasonably that the thing he did became blurry, became debatable, became maybe not that bad. And Leo had gone back to the parking lot and picked up the proof and put it in his pocket like a man who refused to let the picture go blurry. The people who believe you aren't the ones who need convincing. They're the ones who went back to the parking lot and picked up the torn fabric. The rehearsal dinner was the next night. Margot put me at the head table between Angelina and a woman named Suzanne. Suzanne leaned over before I had my napkin in my lap and said, "Margot told me a little about what happened. I'm glad you're here." She didn't ask for details. She didn't look at me with pity. She just said it and smiled. Halfway through dinner, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Heard you're at the rehearsal." Bold move. Angelina read it and said, "He got someone to text you for him. Don't answer." It buzzed again. "People are talking about you. Not in the way you think." I turned the phone face down. About 20 minutes later, I noticed someone new at the far end of the table. Lexi. I'd met her a few times through Cody's friend group. Within 30 minutes, I knew exactly why she'd come. She told the table she'd talked to Cody that morning and he seemed really torn up. She shook her head and said, "I just don't understand why some relationships end over miscommunications." She looked right at me when she said it. I caught Margot in the hallway. "Lexi is doing something," I said. "He sent her." Margot's face went still. "I'll handle it." She walked back into the room and sat down right next to Lexi and started talking to her about work and her apartment and a recent trip, redirecting every time Lexi tried to steer back to Cody, like water flowing around a rock. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't make anyone uncomfortable. She just managed it from the inside. The damage happened after. I was at the coat rack when Lexi walked up. Her face was harder now. "Cody told me you've been telling people he hit you. That's a serious accusation." I looked at her and said, "I never said he hit me. I said he ripped my dress off my body. There's a difference, and he knows it." Her face changed. Something cracked behind her eyes, like she was hearing a detail she hadn't been given. She opened her mouth, closed it, picked up her bag, walked out. He'd changed the story. He'd taken what he actually did and turned it into a rumor about hitting so he could deny that instead of the truth. He gave people a different accusation to focus on so they'd never get to the real one. And it was working, on Lexi at least, right up until I told her what actually happened. The morning of the wedding, I stood in front of the mirror in the green dress and heard Cody's voice in my head as clearly as if he was standing behind me. "Who are you trying to impress?" That's what he would have said. Leaning against the doorframe with his arms crossed, his eyes going up and down my body like he was grading an assignment I'd failed, I closed my eyes. I breathed in through my nose and out through my mouth the way I'd been teaching myself to do when his voice crept in. Then I opened my eyes and looked at myself and said out loud, "Me." One word to an empty room. The truest thing I'd said in 2 years. The venue was a garden estate. Stone paths, old trees, white chairs on the lawn. Angelina and I walked in through the side entrance and I noticed the glances right away. Some warm, real smiles. The kind that said, "I'm glad you're here." Some looking away fast, or leaning toward the person next to them and saying something I couldn't hear. I could feel the split in the room like a crack in a window. On one side were the people who knew the truth. On the other were the people who'd heard Cody's version, the accidental rip, the bitter ex-girlfriend. And in the middle were the people who didn't know what to think and were just waiting to see what happened. Suzanne found me near the entrance. She touched my elbow. "Some of Leo's college friends think you got Cody kicked out for attention." The words hit me right in the spot I thought I'd armored over. How many? Enough to make it uncomfortable if he shows up and plays the victim. I was still standing there when Margot appeared in her wedding dress and pulled me into a prep room. She took both my hands. The venue coordinator told me someone called this morning pretending to be part of the groom's party. He was asking about parking and timing. It was Cody's voice. "He's coming." I stepped back. "I'll leave," I said. "Margot, this is your wedding day. I'm not going to be the reason he shows up." Margot grabbed my arm, gently, not like Cody, not like a grip meant to control, but like a hand meant to keep someone from running. "If you leave, he wins. He took your dress. He took your confidence. He took 2 years. He doesn't get to take this. You sit in that chair and you watch me marry the man who stood up for you. That's your seat. He doesn't get it." I nodded, because she was right. If I left, Cody would walk into a room where my chair was empty and he'd know he did that. I was done letting him empty rooms for me. On my way to my seat, one of Leo's college friends stepped into my path. "Is it true Cody wasn't even invited?" "It's true." "Why?" I could have explained. I could have made my case to one more person, but I was tired of auditioning my own story. "Ask Leo." Angelina appeared beside me as he walked away. "Stop trying to convince people. The ones who need proof weren't paying attention to begin with." I sat in my chair. The sun was warm on my shoulders and the green dress felt like armor and a promise at the same time. I didn't pull out my phone. I didn't scan for Cody. I just sat there, in my seat, in my dress, in my body. The music started. Margot walked down the aisle and Leo's face crumbled the way it does when a man sees the person he chose looking like a promise kept. I cried. Not because of them, because I realized I'd spent 2 years with someone who never once looked at me like that. The reception was set up under string lights and white fabric, tables in a circle around a dance floor. When Leo stood up for his toast, he looked at Margot for a long second and then said, "Margot taught me that love isn't about keeping someone. It's about making sure they're safe enough to stay." Then his voice got quieter. "A few weeks ago, someone I've known for a long time showed me what it looks like when a man thinks love means control." A long pause. Then he grinned and said, "And my wife showed me what it looks like when a woman refuses to let that stand." The room went quiet, then started clapping. He didn't say Cody's name. He didn't say mine. He didn't have to. Every person there who knew what happened understood, and every person who didn't could feel that there was something underneath those words, something heavy and real that had been carried into this room and set down in front of everyone. I felt the room tilt, not in a bad way, the way a scale tips when you put something on one side. The truth had weight, and Leo had just put it on the table in front of 50 people without naming a single name. About 30 minutes into the reception, Cody walked in through a side entrance like he'd been waiting for exactly the right moment. Dark suit, hair neat, the easy, relaxed smile of a man arriving fashionably late to a party he was always supposed to attend. He went straight to the bar, ordered a drink, and started talking to Leo's college friends like he'd just stepped out to take a phone call. Angelina leaned over. "Don't move. Let him come to you. He will." So I didn't move. He worked the room for 20 minutes, shaking hands, laughing at jokes, performing normalcy so well that if you didn't know the backstory, you'd think he was just another guest having a nice time. And it was working. I could see the confusion on people's faces, the thought almost readable. If he was really banned, why does he seem so calm? Why isn't anyone stopping him? That was always the play. Be so calm, so reasonable, so charming, that the person telling the truth looks crazy by comparison. I'd lived inside that trick for 2 years. I knew exactly what it looked like from the outside. Then he started walking toward my table. He stopped a few feet from my chair. His eyes went to the green dress, the one he would have told me to take off. His jaw tightened for half a second. Then the smile came back. He said it loud enough for the tables on either side to hear. "You look great. No hard feelings, right? I just wanted to come say congratulations to Leo." He put his hand out, waiting for me to shake it. I looked at his hand. I didn't take it. I looked up at his face and I said it clearly. Not loud, not angry, just clear. "You weren't invited, Cody." He laughed, the kind of laugh designed to make the other person sound silly. "Come on, this is Leo's wedding. Let's not make it about us." Something clicked in my chest. There it was, the trick one more time, wrapped up in a reasonable voice and a nice suit. "Let's not make it about us." Like I was the one who'd shown up uninvited. "You made it about us when you ripped my dress in the parking lot at his engagement party." The table next to us went quiet. A woman with her fork halfway to her mouth put it down on her plate. Cody's smile flickered. He leaned in closer and lowered his voice the way he used to do in our apartment when he wanted to make something disappear. "That's not what happened, and you know it." I didn't lean back. I didn't shrink. "You grabbed the fabric at my hip and you pulled until it tore to my ribs. You did it because a man told me I looked nice and you couldn't stand it." The words hung in the air like smoke. I heard a chair push back 2 tables away. Dante stood up. He'd heard everything. Heard me name the compliment that started it all. The one he gave me. He walked over and stood next to my chair. He didn't say a word. He just stood there. A living reminder that the thing Cody was trying to deny had a witness. Then Margot was there. She walked right up to Cody in her wedding dress. Her voice carried across the tables the way a voice carries when it doesn't need to shout. "I told you to leave my engagement party. Now I'm telling you to leave my wedding. You weren't invited. You know why." Cody looked past her at Leo, who had come up behind Margot. Cody's face changed. The charm dropped. He said, "You're really going to let them do this? We've been friends for 12 years. Leo didn't hesitate. "You grabbed your girlfriend hard enough to rip her clothes off her body in front of my family's restaurant, and then you came back inside and ordered a drink. 12 years doesn't cover that." Cody's composure broke, not slowly, like glass hitting the floor. His face went red, starting at his neck and moving up. His eyes searched the room, fast, for anyone who would step forward in his defense. He looked at Lexi. She was staring at her plate. He looked at the college friends he'd been laughing with 20 minutes ago. Not one of them moved. Most of the room was watching now, and nobody was rushing to Cody's side. I looked up at him from my chair. I was in my green dress, the dress I picked, the dress Angelina helped me find, the dress Cody would never have let me wear. I didn't say another word. I didn't need to. Cody turned around and walked out. He didn't slam a table. He didn't make some big exit. He just walked across the reception area and through the same side entrance he'd come in through, and he was gone. The space he'd been standing in closed up behind him like water filling a hole. The band started playing again. Margot walked past my chair on her way back to Leo and put her hand on my shoulder and leaned down close to my ear and whispered, "That dress is perfect." I stayed for every dance. I danced with Angelina. I danced with Suzanne. I danced by myself when a song came on that I liked, just moving on the dance floor under the string lights in my green dress with my shoulders bare and my waist showing and my body out in the open for no one's approval and no one's permission. I didn't check my phone once.